I'm Ryan, and this is the Sound Project. All right, today we have Jonathan Lessner from Dolby with us. So Jonathan, you and I met, it was over 2 years ago now, I think.
A little over 2 years. Yeah.
Going through, like certification with Dolby and things like that. But so I'm really excited to have you on.
Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. Really excited.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and just start. The first thing that we always ask is just, what's your history with music and what got you to where you are now?
Music. My mom really dislikes this story. I used to be a DJ.
Okay.
That's what really got me into music. I'm into all sorts of different genres. I can lightweight play the piano, but that's about it. DJing with music is really what got me deep into music. It helped expand kind of like my horizons and ideas about music and like eclectic music, right? Listen to a lot of EDM actually. EDM, like drum and bass. Listen to a lot of like Moombatone, kind of dubstep, offset of dubstep-ish. But my kind of main bread and butter and that I absolutely love is mid-90s punk.
Okay.
Mid-90s punk really has my heart. Rancid, Op Ivy, Pennywise, TSOL. Mid-90s punk is really my jam. And I've recently kind of started getting into a little bit of reggae.
Okay.
And just kind of listening like Iration and Revolution, stuff like that.
Nice.
There's really nothing I don't listen to
at
this point. And even I've gotten into a little bit of country, which my friends one year took me to Stagecoach. And I was like, did I upset you guys somehow for you guys to take me to Stagecoach? Because I was never really into country, but been kind of starting to, bridge that gap a little bit as well. So
nice.
I just love music. DJing is really what kind of expanded my knowledge with it. I went to a community college and kind of took some MIDI programs and music production program stuff. And then I ended up moving down from the Bay Area to Los Angeles in order to continue my schooling. And I went to a school called Soundmaster. It was a recording kind of post-production school that was based at the time in North Hollywood. They're unfortunately no longer around. But that's kind of where I got my start with music and everything.
What initially got you into the DJing side of things? That's something that you don't necessarily hear a ton about.
I ended up at a rave. I ended up at a rave and I was just like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I want to do this. So I ended up, just saving money, buying Technique 1200s, buying a really, really junky mixer that barely worked, and buying a couple of records here and there and stuff. And then ended up going, and meeting other DJs in the Bay Area. Cool. We would go out to San Francisco or Oakland or wherever and go record shopping together and like finding those rare, as they call them, white labels, right? And everything. And I still to this day I have 3 Technique 1200s set up at my house. I still have all of my records still at my house, and I absolutely refuse to sell a single one of them because they're just unobtainable. I was actually talking to my boss, Greg Strike Chin. Greg's came from Avid. He's been with Dolby for a while now. My coworker Brian Pennington and I now report to him. He is a DJ in Miami. Okay. He's a techno DJ. And we were actually chopping it up this morning before he did a panel at the Lennon Bus.
That's awesome.
About just talking about DJing and like, where we've been and like what we've done and everything. And it just always was cool to me. And this was back in the day. I'm old. So we were carrying big record crates around San Francisco, Oakland, wherever the clubs, raves were, with a record bag over my shoulder with my headphones and my needles and a couple extra records and maybe some other stuff.
Sure.
And it was, that's what really got me into DJing. And talking to Greg, it was, I was like, I've really been thinking about maybe getting back into it just for myself.
Yeah.
Right. Just maybe getting a Serato setup or a Tractor setup or the Phase setup that they have nowadays and everything. They're doing stems and everything, so you can sample different stems and mute different stems like Serato and Tractor and stuff. So been kind of thinking about like just getting back into it just for fun and be a bedroom DJ, as they're called.
Do you still DJ much?
Nothing at all. Yep. Nothing at all. When I do, it's me by myself in my house and I'm playing vinyl.
Sure.
Which is how you learn. You know what I mean? The new digital stuff now, there's a sync button. It syncs the two records together for you. Yep. I kind of appreciate hearing a DJ I look up to, as we call it, train wreck, right?
Sure.
Or instead of if you're doing house or techno, that constant doom, 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 doom. But train wrecking is like do 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 do, like you're not matching those beats correctly. And so, coming from vinyl, I feel very lucky just because like I can, I don't need that sync button. And a DJ that I look up to, train wrecking, shows me that this person has soul. And I like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember, I forget what artist it was, and it's probably good that I don't remember because I wouldn't want to say it. But there was an artist that like her sync button or something, like basically her 2 tracks stopped syncing in the middle of a show. And it was like totally lost after that. And it's like, not to diss it, but it's like, where is the artistry there if like you're not able to, still have a show without a sync button?
My friend contacted me and she was like, my son's thinking about DJing. Where do I start him? I was like, vinyl.
That's awesome.
And she thought I was absolutely bananas. Right. And it's like, well, but you realize if he comes from vinyl, if something goes wrong during a show, he can hold it together.
Right.
Like if something breaks, he can hold it together. So I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So we talked about before trying to make sure that we stay within time for the episode because it's like we both talk a lot. So,
yes.
But that being said, you've also had a massive career in the audio industry.
Yes.
So a couple main points that I know about, and we were even talking about it earlier today, is like, your time at DigiDesign, you've worked in studios, you've also, and obviously have had a huge part at Dolby. So go ahead and talk about like your time at DigiDesign, time in the studios as well, and any other like career moves that you had before Dolby.
So I was that guy that when I got out of school, I was like, I know all things. I know everything. When you literally know nothing. I was able to work for a band, a pretty famous band. They had a small single called Butterfly. Their names are Crazy Town. So I worked with Crazy Town, helped them record their second album called Dark Horse, and then helped them with their other side projects. They had a band, and then they had a rap duo, and then a single rap artist that they were producing. So I would go work at Trader Joe's from 8 a.m. to 4. Okay. I would go to school 4:30 to 10:30, and then I would go to the studio 10:30 till whenever. But I was 22 and I could do that. I thank a guy named Brett Mazer or Epic. I thank him a lot for a lot of my career growth. Okay. DJ AM was another huge part of my career growth. What Brett, and I've told this to people, what Brett Mazer always told me was, you go find something that you love to do that you would do for free, and then you find someone to pay you for it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the perfect thing. So I really started there. After that, I went to a post-production studio, actually right across from Capitol Records building on Vine and Yucca, called Post Logic. It's no longer there. Started as a runner, went to the vault, then started coding tapes. Then like before I left, I was like the everything night guy, like whatever you need. Oh, our telecine assist is out. Cool. I'll put film on the Spirit and hole punch the A-frame. Audio needs an assist today. Okay, great. So I would basically fill in there. And then that's when I took the move and I moved back up to the Bay Area.
Okay.
And I started working at DigiDesign. It was in Daly City. It actually did still say DigiDesign on the sign on the building. But worked there. And I worked for a wonderful guy named John Weber there. He basically was in charge of post-production workflows. Okay. So we're talking MXF, AAF, import, export from Media Composer Pro Tools back and forth, 9-pin machine control. So if you were controlling way back in the day, like a digital Betacam machine or an HD Cam SR or an HD Cam or a D5, whatever for layback for post-production, that's 9-pin machine control. Also worked on the MADI boxes, the Sync HD boxes, and then Satellite Link.
Okay.
I made it 3 years at DigiDesign before I got a knock on my door. That was my boss and an HR representative from Avid from the East Coast. He walked over to me, hugged me, and said, "You and me both, brother." I interviewed 1 week to the day for Dolby, got the job at Dolby. I started there doing QA, QC as well for broadcast plugins. So Dolby Media Meter, Dolby Media Emulator, that type of thing. Ken Legault was a VP and he knew me from DigiDesign and he came and grabbed me and went to my boss and was like, "I'm taking Jonathan." And it was for internal project Ocean or Cinematic Atmos.
Okay.
This was when it was command line based. So if you typed one wrong letter, the render would not work. It didn't have a fancy UI like it does now. It's come a long way.
Yeah.
So I did Cinematic Atmos, Home Theater Atmos, Atmos for VR, Atmos for gaming, and then the last thing before the job I have currently was Dolby Atmos for dance clubs.
Yep. So
we were working with DJs and producers, working to help them get their sets and everything ready. We had 3 clubs that we did. The Mecca Ministry of Sound in London. The second club we did was Chicago's Sound Bar. And then we did San Francisco's Halcyon, were the 3 clubs that we had. And I understand the decision. I wish we would have kept it around.
Sure.
But that initiative no longer exists for Dolby. So we don't do Atmos clubs anymore. They in a way didn't want to just be, hey, Dolby Atmos music has to be EDM in a way. So they wanted to open it up to where Dolby Atmos music is today, right?
Are
and
those
now,
clubs still Atmos, the ones that you mentioned?
Not.
Okay.
They are not. No.
Bummer.
Unfortunately. And now my job, I was hired to work on dub stages, work on movies, tune rooms, and everything still like home theater or cinematic dub stages. And then my role kind of changed. I met all these amazing, talented human beings that kind of became my friends on the dub stages, and now I don't get to see them. Yeah. But I make new friends now. My coworker Brian Pennington and I, we're now pretty deep into like the music initiative. Brian is still pretty deep with the Academy. Brian's an Academy member, so he still helps out with the Academy Museum theaters here in Los Angeles and everything. So he's still kind of involved where I'm pretty deep heavily into like the music thing.
Sure.
And then sometimes Brian and I get to go do video game studios as well.
Okay.
Different studios and stuff. And I mean, I was actually the engineer that went up to Microsoft and set up a little Atmos room at Microsoft in order to try to get Atmos into the Xbox years upon years ago.
That's awesome.
And so I set it up and then they did the demos in there, and the CEO was pretty impressed with how we remixed like a little clip of Tomb Raider, and it was kind of a done deal. Yeah. So, but yeah, mostly music now, very lucky, very blessed. Brian Pennington really took me under his wing and really took me to the next level of calibrating rooms and everything, and really instilled a lot of his 27 or 28 years of knowledge that he's been doing this. I have 3 notebooks of Brian Pennington knowledge that I have extracted, and he'll make fun of me for it,
Sure.
but he, I thanked him. I got promoted a couple of years ago, and I was like, this is because of you. And he's like, no, it's because of you. Yes and no. Like, you really helped me out and kind of took me to the next level. So,
That's awesome.
So that's kind of like my quick kind of, I try to get through that quick. Sorry. Try to get through that quick kind of like trajectory of like where I've, kind of been and everything.
Yeah. So one initiative that we've talked about in the past is the like Dolby Live, which is a pretty big thing in Vegas right now. But you've been a really big part in that. So go ahead and talk about like what that experience has been like and your involvement in that.
I lived a lot in Vegas for a while. There was a lot of me flying back and forth. Worked a lot with Usher and his team. A gentleman named Kyle Hamilton is his front of house mixer. Absolute sweetheart, absolute delight to work with. Love Kyle. Was out there a lot. Usher would do Wednesday, Friday, Saturdays. So I would fly in Wednesday morning and I would leave Sunday and then come back Wednesday and then leave Sunday and then come back Wednesday and leave Sunday.
Dang.
And that was kind of like my gig. In order to try to get things off the ground, we have to provide support. Even on the dub stages, when we do an Atmos print master for a movie, a dubbing engineer from Dolby goes there because we're kind of their safety blanket. Like if anything goes wrong, we have the Dolby guy here. And we're good to go, and if we're kind of, it's just it's a delight to like do this type of stuff. Right. And work with these people. And, on the dub stages, we would walk in last and everyone's in a good mood because the movie's finished mixing, everything's approved and everyone's very happy and very just sweet and great to work with. But the live initiative, we started with a proof of concept spot that not too many people know about, which was House of Blues in Vegas at Mandalay Bay. And Kevin Madigan was mixing Carlos Santana live in Atmos. I mean, he's done a lot of shows in Atmos. Some people, I've been there for some of the shows and, to get that off the ground and just do our proof of concept spot. And I've seen people come down from the balcony being like, oh, is this in Atmos? Because I heard the bongos and the congos and this doing that. And like, Kevin loves it. I was like, that's the man right there. Kevin Madigan, he's mixing. But for Dolby Live, it was on a much bigger scale. Like you're talking going from, I want to say as a guest, please don't flame me, but I want to say as a guest, House of Blues, maybe like 1,500. Where Dolby Live is 5,500. It is a very long, big building. You're looking at wall to wall, side to side, about a little over 200 feet. So Brian Pennington was key in putting that room together with the system and everything, which is great. He did a fantastic job. We went there. We kind of laid down like a bass kind of tuning, but what that room sounds like. We don't want to go into a room that's known for sound and change it.
Right.
That's the last thing on the planet that we want to do. So what we did is we took a frequency or a frequency analysis trace of what left and right we're doing without us even touching it. And then what we did is we tried to match all the other speakers that we added. By the way, we added 408 boxes and then 26 dual 18s across the front. It's got gobs of headroom, and that's a very technical term. It's and that's that's what we had to do. So if there's any onboarding or like updates or people that are going out there, I went and set up Aerosmith's rehearsal spot right before they went in there. Worked with Kyle pretty closely from Usher's camp, right? Vince and Matt from Maroon 5. Matt's his system tech. Worked with them pretty closely, Matt, and did like a small little L acoustic setup in their rehearsal studio, right?
Wow.
Mariah Carey, we worked with Stephanie Copley from Genelec, and put together a small room for them at her rehearsal spot, so they can kind of pre-author and get like an idea of like what Atmos is and what it's going to do. Mm-hmm. But going in from like a small little room that, you have at a space in like a rehearsal studio, mm-hmm. is not really necessarily easy to compare to a 5,500 person system. Yeah. But you understand what's going, you understand what you need to do in positioning. So what you can do actually when you go into Dolby Live is we can take our iPad app and you can pan things as in on Wi-Fi as you're walking through the venue.
Right.
So the mixers, the front of house mixers, can make sure that they're happy with the placement of those objects and stuff and what everything's doing. And then, so since we set the baseline, we let them come in and do their EQ. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where it all started. Dolby Live, 2 years ago at CES, we did a one-off with Imagine Dragons that people still, I was just at CES a couple weeks ago, people are still talking about.
That's awesome.
We did a one-off with Macklemore at South by Southwest, mm-hmm. Which was great. ACL Moody Theater, set that place up, did the delays, took care of the EQ, worked with the front of house mixer for Macklemore and made that happen. And most recently, King Lear at the Shed in New York. And hopefully we will continue bringing in more groups and more bands and more solo acts, whatever it may be, and giving them demos and letting them be the judge, you know? So that's kind of where we stand with Dolby Live. It's come a long way. We're doing a lot of shows. Mm-hmm. Mariah Carey and Maroon 5 are coming up here this year. So I'll probably be out there, kind of check in with those guys, make sure everybody's happy and everything. We've kind of moved to more of like a remote support setup.
Sure.
So Kevin and Ariel, the A1 and A2 at Dolby Live, we trained pretty well, and they're wicked smart people, right? So it should be, in a perfect world, knock on wood, you should be able to basically turn on our rack, turn on everything, and it should just work. Haha.
Yeah.
So we've been fortunate for a little bit less travel to Vegas.
Sure.
But I miss the people. I actually used to go up to like the executive offices at Dolby Live and just say hi to people.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, I'm Jonathan. Hey, I brought you guys some treats today. Mm-hmm. This type of thing, and just kind of like say hi. I got to know like a lot of the security guards there and everything, because of how much I was there,
right, and
everything, and it's just been awesome working with I'll never forget, like, one day Usher came in and he's the second person to be there.
Yeah.
It's his management and then him, and he'll pull in and he'll grab his bike and ride his bike down Las Vegas Boulevard.
That's awesome.
Right. But he's there before the dancers. He's there before the band. He's there before. He's a hustler. That guy is an absolute sweetheart and deserves absolutely everything that he's earned because he works his butt off for it.
Yeah.
So really happy, kind of miss seeing them in Dolby Live.
Sure.
But he's doing his tour, after the Super Bowl, went out and he's doing a really big tour. So I'm really happy for him.
That's awesome.
And the guys there.
On the technical side, just because so many of our listeners are based in the studio opposed to the live, like I think a lot of people are used, and even before I knew you, like I was familiar with Atmos in a studio where it's like, okay, you have, one speaker in each position, where Dolby Live, like, it's a little bit different because it's Atmos, but in a live setup. So do you want to talk about how, on the technical side, how the setup is how the setup is? Yeah.
We actually kind of look at it as a 714, honestly. There are arrays. So it is more closely to a dub stage or cinematic Atmos room.
Sure.
Right. Where you have arrays, not just point source speakers, like we do for music or like we do for home entertainment, right? Yep. If somebody's mixing for Hulu or Apple or Netflix or whoever it may be. That's, those are the point source speakers and everything. And, the arrays. So what we did is we basically made we actually started with 5 across the front at Dolby Live. And we found, talking to the front of house mixers, that those 2 in the middle, so you had left, center, right? The 2 in the middle would be in between left and center, and then right and center, or called left center and right center, is what those speakers would be called. Kind of like the dub stages. We found out, talking to the front of house mixers, that those were kind of pointless, and let's not do that. So we went down to 3 hangs, and then we basically have wides, and then 2 arrays of sides, and then speakers across the back. But then we have speakers across on top of the underbouks, and in the rears of the underbouks, and on the bouks going towards people, right? So they get everything, right? So if you're in the underbauk, basically what you're getting is we're kind of doing re-renders and stuff. So we'll use the render to do a 5-1-2. So you'll get the center and the LFE, and then you'll have kind of sides and overheads. Okay. So you basically get a 5-1-2 in the under balconies. And what we use is, we use 2 tools to do this. We use the render, and then we use what's called a Prodigy MP. Okay. Prodigy MP is it's a box that's made. It's totally configurable. You can do Ravenna. Yep. It can do AVB. It can do Dante, Maddie, whatever you want. It's all kind of totally configurable, and then you can do different routing and stuff. It's basically just a really big routing matrix type of thing. So we use those 2 boxes to kind of help us get those underbouks in a really good spot and everything. But we do kind of look at it as not a 914. I shouldn't have said that. Or sorry, a 714, 914, because we do have wides right off the side of the stage where you can't see them. There's actually fabric, so you can't see them. And then there's 2 more. So it's kind of an 11-1-4. So we have arrays and everything, and then kind of point sources all the way across the back walls at the top and everything. And then bass management spread throughout the entire room and stuff, doing the bass management that the speakers can't, get to with the lower frequencies and everything. Yeah. So yeah.
Cool. I know we're cutting it close on time. So the last thing I want to talk about is you did a project at a local restaurant called Verse. And so, yeah, do you want to go ahead and talk about the project that you did there?
Yes. So Verse is a absolutely lovely restaurant owned by the famous Manny Marroquin. Yep. It is 2 doors down from his studio. His cook, his chef is absolutely world renowned. Yep. I personally have done, I think, 2 or 3 things there, and I've never ate there.
You're missing out. Food is amazing.
I've heard. I've heard it's really good. So what we did is we basically did a small Dolby Live, Dolby Atmos setup in there. He has a Meyer Constellation system in his restaurant. Yep. In Verse. So we brought in a huge rack of gear in order to do this. And the Meyer guys were there. A gentleman named David, who does the front of house for Verse, was there. And we basically made one night in Atmos at Verse for this Mercedes event with Alicia Keys. It turned out really great. The Mercedes sent 39 cars. They would either pick you up and drive you to the event, or you could get in and test drive it yourself to the event. The food there looked amazing. He opened his studio door so you could check that out and everything. They removed all the furniture in there and did 2 extremely long LED tables.
Oh, cool.
And then put a piece of plastic over it, or plexiglass, for people in case you spilled water or something. It didn't ruin that LED panel. Yep. So it was really cool. Worked with the Meyer guys, got everything all taken care of. David that does the mixing there was super happy about it. Alicia seemed happy. And then Brian and I were sitting out back, waiting for the event to end because we had to tear down all the gear and stuff and take our rack and everything back to the Dolby office. And a gentleman walks out, kind of looks at Brian. I think Brian was wearing a Dolby vest or something.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy was just like, man, it sounds amazing in there. Guy, walks away. Brian kind of looks at me. He's like, that was interesting. I wonder who that was. I was like, oh, that's this really small producer that happens to be married to Alicia Keys. That was Swizz Beatz. That literally just paid you a really great compliment.
Yeah.
So really, really cool. Really nice to hear, within, the thing within the audio world, no news is good news.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm one of those people. I kind of go out of my way and thank people,
Mm-hmm.
as I think everyone should. I thank people. I thank them for their hard work. I thank them for all their diligence and everything. And it's, I think it should be done more.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, we do have to wrap up, but I just want to, again, thank you for doing this. I was really excited when you said that you were able to do it. The fact that, again, I think it was just over 2 years ago, and it's like, I consider you a good friend now, which is really, really cool.
It's great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Thank Gavin. I really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to this all day. In fact, all week. I thought it was going to be really cool. I was like, this is going to be great. We're just going to, chat. Yeah. And that's what it is. I consider you a friend. And like, if, like everybody else, if you ever need anything, like I'm always happy to help. I love hearing what you guys are up to at times and, sometimes following you into rooms that you guys have already done acoustic treatments and your guys' diligent work too, and following up and, doing the calibration. And it's always great. Like, I've been in studios for, a while, and a guy walked into the studio I just calibrated not that long ago, and he I didn't know he was there, and I turned around, I kind of see him, and I was like, oh hey, and he was like, how's it going? And I was like, I don't have a watch on. I always do that. I looked at my phone, I was like, oh yeah, I've been like just listening in here for the past like hour and 15 minutes. This room sounds beautiful. So I feel very lucky and very blessed to do what I do and walk in, to studios after other professionals have put their touches on it. Absolutely. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you again for watching. That's been another episode of The Sound Project, and we will see you next week.